Have you ever met someone whose confidence feels louder than their competence? They stride into a room as if they own it, speak with unwavering certainty, and leave you wondering what substance lies beneath their words. Across time and culture, Stoic philosophers have warned us of this all-too-common pattern, the traits of a mind that looks intelligent from afar but collapses under scrutiny. In this video, we'll explore 8 unmistakable signs of such a mind, and through timeless Stoic wisdom and modern-day stories, learn how to recognize and rise above folly. 1. They never question themselves. A truly unwise person treats their own opinions as gospel. They cling to certainty, dismiss any challenge, and mistake stubbornness for strength. To them, disagreement isn't an invitation to learn, it's a personal attack. Socrates famously said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." He meant that without self-reflection, we exist on autopilot, never growing. Consider Rick, a manager convinced that 2 decades of experience made his way untouchable. When a junior colleague proposed a fresh idea, Rick shot it down. "I've done this for 20 years, I know what works." Innovation stalled, morale plummeted, and the team stopped offering input. Rick didn't fail for lack of knowledge, he failed because he stopped questioning whether his old methods still served the future. Key signs: they interrupt but never ask questions, argue but never examine their logic, and never apologize because, in their mind, they're never wrong. 2. They speak without thinking. Some people confuse impulsiveness with honesty, blurting out the first thought that crosses their mind without pause or filter. But careless words don't reflect courage, they reflect carelessness. Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, advised, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." A stumble bruises the body, reckless words can destroy trust and reputations. Take Kyle, who prided himself on directness. In a meeting, he dismissed a teammate's idea as "the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Silence fell. The teammate shut down, innovation died, and collaboration evaporated. Kyle thought he was being honest, what he was being was hurtful. Over time, people avoided sharing ideas in his presence, not because they lacked insight, but because they feared ridicule. Key signs: they interrupt constantly, talk more than they listen, and their words sow conflict rather than clarity. True intelligence isn't in how much you speak, but in knowing when to stay silent. 3. They blame everyone but themselves. When things go wrong, a foolish person points the finger outward. Missed deadlines? The team didn't pull its weight. Failed projects? The market wasn't ready. Broken relationships? The other person is always the problem. Epictetus taught, "The wise man seeks to correct himself, the fool blames others." Refusing to own mistakes is fear masquerading as pride. Consider Brandon, an entrepreneur whose ventures repeatedly collapsed. Each failure carried a new excuse: "My partners weren't committed, the timing was off, people just don't appreciate visionaries like me." He never paused to ask, "What could I have done differently?" As excuses mounted, trust vanished. Investors and collaborators learned that with Brandon, accountability was a one-way street. Key signs: they play the victim in every story, exaggerate others' faults, downplay their own role, and never learn, because they believe they have nothing to learn. Growth begins where blame ends. 4. They react emotionally to everything. Emotions are powerful guides, but when they hijack our reasoning, they become our greatest liability. A foolish person lets anger, jealousy, or fear drive every decision. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that he who masters himself is mightier than he who conquers a city. Emotional mastery isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about controlling responses. Michel's coworker had talent, but he also had a short fuse. A minor critique, and he'd storm out of meetings or send scathing emails. His outbursts overshadowed his skills. Eventually, people stopped collaborating with him, not because he lacked ability, but because working with him felt like walking through a minefield. Key signs: they snap at criticism, misread neutral remarks as attacks, and let fleeting emotions dictate permanent decisions. True strength lies in breathing, reflecting, and responding thoughtfully. 5. They mock what they don't understand. Mockery is the mask of insecurity. When an idea challenges their limited worldview, a foolish person ridicules it instead of exploring it. Aristotle, admired even by Stoics, said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." You don't have to agree with every idea, but you should be willing to understand it. Trevor scoffed at mindfulness and emotional intelligence as soft talk. He never read the research, never asked how it could help. Meanwhile, his own life was a whirlwind of stress and conflict. Yet he mocked anyone who suggested a different approach, terrified that learning might expose his own gaps. Key signs: they laugh at new concepts, call curiosity weakness, and treat depth as pretension. In truth, a closed mind is a silent prison, while curiosity is the key to growth. 6. They repeat the same mistakes. Everyone stumbles, but wisdom lies in learning from the fall. A foolish mind ignores patterns, repeats errors, and blames fate. Seneca warned, "The unwise trip over the same stone twice." Without awareness, life becomes a cycle of frustration. Derek rushed into relationship after relationship, ignoring red flags, blaming partners for every fallout. "They just didn't understand me," he'd say. Year after year, the pattern repeated. The mistake wasn't love, it was his unwillingness to examine his own role. Until he learned to pause and reflect, he was destined to relive the same heartbreak. Key signs: they excuse failure as bad luck, cling to familiar habits, and believe destiny is immutable. But mistakes are life's greatest teachers, if only we're willing to listen. 7. They believe winning an argument is more important than understanding. For some, every conversation is a battlefield. They argue not to uncover truth, but to claim victory. Epictetus counseled, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Real growth comes when we stop needing to prove ourselves. Anthony was brilliant, but exhausting. Any friendly chat would morph into a debate. He interrupted, twisted words, and raised his voice to dominate. Over time, friends and colleagues stopped engaging. They knew a discussion with Anthony wasn't an exchange of ideas, it was a performance. Key signs: they can't handle dissent, they interrupt before you finish, and they value dominance over connection. True dialogue seeks understanding, not conquest. 8. They pretend to know everything. Finally, the loudest sign of all, pretending to know more than you do. A foolish person speaks with absolute certainty on topics they barely grasp, offering opinions as if they were facts. Socrates reminded us, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Humble curiosity, not arrogant performance, defines real intelligence. Chris was that guy. No matter the subject, he had an expert take. Politics, business, science, he spoke as if he'd lived it all. At first, people nodded politely. But over time, his claims rang hollow. When challenged, he became defensive, because his identity rested on the illusion of omniscience. Key signs: they never ask for help, they speak over those with experience, and they can't say "I don't know" without embarrassment. Real strength lies in admitting ignorance and seeking knowledge. There you have it, 8 signs that confidence has outpaced competence, and arrogance has drowned out wisdom. The Stoics taught us that true strength is humble, curious, and self-aware. When you spot these traits, in yourself or others, remember that growth begins with reflection, restraint, and responsibility. Choose clarity over noise, curiosity over certainty, and watch as the illusions of folly give way to the quiet power of wisdom. If you found these insights helpful, hit like and subscribe for more reflections grounded in Stoic philosophy.